In this video here, we're going to go over counter shoulder in from the ground. I've got Cider here. He's a 15-year-old Rocky Mountain horse, and I've just pulled him up from the pasture. He hasn't had much work done in quite some time. I want to use the counter shoulder in as a way to show you how you can start conditioning an older horse or a horse that hasn't been worked with in a while, and to prepare for the riding. So what I'm going to show you is really the easiest version of a shoulder in work, and it's very similar to our sideways work. So I'm going to take him, I'm going to send him on over to the rail, and when I get to the rail, I'm going to take him down the rail, and what I'm looking for, just like in our shoulder in, is the bend and the angle. What makes this a counter shoulder in is he's bent to the outside, his shoulders are out, his hind end's in. And so that was pretty nice there. Now what I'm looking for is a nice bend in his body and the angle, but I don't want too much angle. So as I turn the corner here, I want to show you, I'd like to keep it in a 3-track to a 4-track. If his hind end comes off the rail too much, turns more into a sideways. Like this here, right now I wouldn't want any more than that. So I'm going down the rail, I'm asking for the bend, and let me explain how we get that. Well, I'm going to go back the other way here. And there's 3 things we're looking for, or three things that we're going to do to get the counter shoulder in. The first one is you need to set the speed. So I get the speed that I want in my own feet. I'm not speeding up, I'm not slowing down. The second thing is I get a holding hand. My hand on the line is holding. What most people want to do is bump and pull and go forward, and their hands just going all over the place. When you do that, it's hard for your horse to get in your hand. That's what I'm looking for, is for him to step up into my hand. That's the second thing. The third thing is the angle. How much angle do I want? And so this here's pretty good. And now I'm going to use my stick to talk to whatever body part is not bending. So I get the speed I want, I get a holding hand, and then I'm asking the angle. This is a nice angle. And the fourth thing is I talk to the body part that needs communicating to. And there, I held him in it a long time. He's actually doing really well. So what I want you to do when you go to play with this is go until it's nice. And what I mean by nice is there's not a lot of weight in your hand, and if you look from his poll to his tail, there's a nice arc in his body, and he's crossing over, and then you can come to a halt. Yes, he comes to the halt and he just turned and swung to me, and that's okay in the beginning. Later on, ideally is can you get him to halt in the counter shoulder in position? That would be great. So I give him a moment there, and then I'm going to ask again. So I'm going to head down the rail. I get my speed, the speed that I want. Then I make sure I have a holding hand. And then I ask, how much angle do I want? And I don't want too much angle here, because then it turns more into a sideways and not a counter shoulder in. I'm looking for the hind leg that's closest to me to step up and under his body. See, if you look, he doesn't really bring that foot very far up underneath. And that's because his back is kind of dropped. He's hollowed out. If we work on this for 3, 4, you know, days up to a couple weeks, that's going to improve. The more he lifts his back up, the more he's able to bring the inside hind up and underneath. And that's why the shoulder in and counter shoulder in is such a great exercise for all horses. And for Cider here, this is really good because it starts picking his back up. He starts engaging the hind. This side's a little bit better. He brings the hind foot up underneath a little bit more. Now, as a safety, if you get the hind end too close, or you're in the place of being kicked, you're in danger. So just know that, and maybe you want to get farther behind your horse, or if you step up beside your horse more, get closer to my horse. So if I get more at his belly here, it's hard for him to kick. But if I'm like right here, I could potentially get kicked. So then I might get a little farther back. You decide where it's going to best help your horse. Sometimes if you get too far back, then it's a little harder to communicate with the horse. And so this is nice here. And again, I'm going a long time here because he has it, but there I kind of just ask him to come to a halt. And that's the next stage of that is, can you start getting him to halt in that counter shoulder in position. So counter shoulder in is the horse is bent away from the direction of travel, so you have bend and angle. He's bent into the rail. I'm between the horse and the rail, asking the horse to go down. As he's wanting to reach down and get grass, so I just talk to the body part that's not going. And this is pretty nice here. So some of the benefits of doing this is getting that inside hind to start stepping up, start engaging, getting them to lift their back a bit. If you're too much in a sideways here where they're square to the fence like this, it's a great exercise, but it's more of a suppling exercise, not an engaging exercise. So when you bring the hind end closer, where there's a slight crossover, but not a lot, it engages. So you're getting engagement and you're starting to get bend through the body and rib cage. I use this exercise a lot when I'm circling the horse and the horse isn't really bending on the circle. I can come out and do some counter shoulder in both directions, go back to my circle and see, did it improve my circle? And usually it does. And so over time, you're going to develop the counter shoulder in, getting more lift, getting a little more stretch underneath and engagement. So this is a great place to start as exercises for a horse that hasn't been working much. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.